Hey guys, so we've been doing a mini painting competition again the last couple of months. I think we started somewhere in November, December. Um, and by now, finally, everyone, or nearly everyone, was ready with the with the miniatures. So I'm gonna do a short video discussing all of the entries. We have a total of 11 entries, and this time the theme for the painting competition was female figurines. So everything you're gonna see is gonna be female. This first one is a barbarian chief. I believe it's from the new Warcry set, or relatively new Warcry set. Um, and yeah, it's painted quite nicely. The first thing that strikes me is that well, the use of colors is, or the way that the paint has been used is quite sketchy, a little bit cartoony, using quite extreme highlights. And I believe the painter that painted this has already also won a couple of, or at least one time, the painting competition with this style of painting. In an army, it's really evocative to as a whole. I think that the level of detail in some places is really cool, like in the face, showing even the tongue and the top row of teeth. That is quite a cool detail. Overall, I think it's a well painted miniature. It's a certain style. You have to either like the style or you don't like the style. I think the hand could have used a little bit more attention as well as the axe. But well, it's also part of the style um, that gives this result. I also really like the basing, having it a little bit broken up in terms of basing, with a couple of different colored tufts with some snow, both on the ground and on the tufts themselves. I haven't really seen a lot of people put tufts on snow or on grass, so that is quite unique. I really like this entry, and I think it's a good competitor. Anyways, all of these competitors are going to be quite strong competitors. The next one is going to be this woman on a fish. So for some reason she has chosen to use a fish as a mount. I believe the fish has actually been 3D printed with a transparent or a translucent plastic. And the person who did this aimed to do this still for, or had a goal in mind of doing this for quite some time, and look at the effect um, after using paint on a transparent object. So probably the fish is also female, by the way, for those interested, and maybe even the octopus on the floor is also female. I think the paint job itself on the woman, on the rider, could be a bit better. Well, there's a strong difference between the different colors used, and also the bone armor is quite separated from the skin, even though there could be a little bit of a stronger definition between those two, making use of a bit more shadow to really set the bone armor apart from the skin, because now the hues are quite similar. Yeah, I like that the hair has a bit of a gradient in it, so that it's darkest close to the head, and then the differences between the highlights and the darker parts are not that stark further away from the model, which you can see quite clearly in the middle picture. And also, I like how the colors of the fish kind of blend in with the hair of the sorceress herself. So I think in total, composition-wise, this is quite a strong competitor, and also just in terms of creativity for using this transparent plastic, that's quite an interesting approach. Next up, we have this guerrilla fighter. She's a bit of a modern era fighter, so that makes her stand out from all the other um, entries, because the group that we are in mostly focuses on fantasy miniatures. I don't know if the flower on the ground on the right is actually supposed to be like a carnivorous plant, or if it's actually some other miniature, but I do like it. Well, the fighter itself, the clothing is nicely done, I would say. I mean, the shadow on the top that she's wearing and on the pants, I think that is quite well executed. Also, the muscles are quite well done. Um, usually with female models, they have less muscle, so it's not as easy to shade them. However, this one is is really muscular. I think that the face could have used a little bit more attention. Well, it's already probably this took already a lot of time. However, it looks a little bit messy, probably because so much effort was put into it. Um, and at some point, there's a bit of a balance between putting in more effort to try to make it look more detailed and losing definition by putting in a lot of detail in your miniature. So for example, in this miniature, I find that the eyes could have been just stronger if not a different color was used to probably accentuate the iris, but just a black dot. In my opinion, would have been better on this one, just to draw your attention a bit more to the face already. Um, but otherwise, yeah, it's also a well painted miniature with quite a nice gradient on the gun also. I think it's a good job. Um, the only thing is that it's a bit of a shame how the head turned out, even though probably this person spent a lot of time and effort on the head. So the next entry is going to be Isabella von Karstein. So I think this is quite a nice paint job, quite a crisp paint job. The only thing I would have liked is a little bit more shadow, once again close to the skin, to set it off a little bit more against the dress, but maybe that's my personal preference. I think the dress itself has been done quite nicely with some nice highlights that are really gradually flowing. And also the NMM, especially on the chalice, is done quite well, I would say. The dagger itself looks a little bit quirky to me. I think the NMM, the non-metallic metal, doesn't really work that well over there. And also the backside of the cloak, it seems like it could have used a little bit of a more gradual gradient. However, I think it's a good piece. It's a good effort on this model because I think it's quite a difficult model to paint. Not only because the sculpt is a bit more limited than the newer sculpt. So I think generally it's a really good job that has been done on this Isabella. Also, I think it's a bit of an alternative paint scheme for this model, so that also makes it even more interesting. Then we go to the next one, which is going to be a Hussar, I think, or a Lancer. So this is a Kislev-inspired model. It's basically a lady holding one of these totems of a winged Lancer. I think the metal on this miniature especially has been done incredibly well. It's a bit of a shame that the base that it's standing on is so big, so that you lose a little bit of the picture on the base. But this is the only entry that has done earth to sky non-metallic metal, where you see the reflection of the earth to the in the metallic metal, non-metallic metal. Sorry. So the only downside there is that the base has quite a lot of greens, and to really make this earth to sky non-metallic metal work, I would say that the lowest part of the metal could have used a little bit more green. But that is really going into the details here. Yeah, once again, I personally am a big fan of just accentuating these shadows at places where the clothing folds over. I think this piece is technically one of the best pieces in the competition. I It's a bit of a shame that in the second picture, especially, like half of the picture is taken up by the base, so that you lose a bit of a sense of the model itself. So the feathers on the winged lancer thing, they're also well done. I think it's I believe it's been done in a bit of a more tricky way than just painting them white with some black edges and then some inking or some dry brushing. It seems a little bit more intricate. The only little detail I can still point out, I think, is going to be on the backside of the well, on the base where the feathers are implanted into the holder, you can see a bit of a black line running from the hand of the model down, and then suddenly it stops and it's taken over by a white line. And I think that this would have looked better if the black line would have just continued um, down the model, down the vein. Um, yeah, I think this is a really great effort at making this model really pop, and I think also this is one of the best paint jobs that this specific model will ever get. This cast of model. Then the next one is going to be a monk or a priest. Um, yeah, so this is also quite a neatly painted model. The white cloak it's difficult to get a white cloak looking good because the shadows in a white cloak are actually quite difficult to paint in a really good way to still make it seem like it's a white cloak rather than any other cloak or a really cartoony cloak. So I think the effort that has been done here is quite good. Um, I would say that it's a little bit of a strong transition between the white and the black, but depending on the light fall, this can happen, and it's a good way to accentuate your white dress. The hair, I don't know if it's been covered in a glossy varnish, but on the picture on the left, it seems to be a little bit on the shiny side. I don't know if it's been washed with a wash, but I would definitely still spray it over with a matte varnish to make this gloss disappear from the hair, because I don't think that there's any other parts of the model that would deserve to be gloss varnished. So that would still, in my opinion, just improve this model a bit. And yeah, the browning on the bottom of the dress, I think is done in a really good way, um, just really smudging up this dress a bit. Yeah, it's a cool entry. Next up is going to be this Shaman Woman. I really like how she is posed, with the dagger above her hand, really menacing, and I believe she's making some kind of offer or sacrifice with the I don't know what it is that she's holding in her right hand, but definitely it's bleeding. Maybe it's a glove to clean up her sword. Maybe it's something that she's slaughtering, like a frog. Can't really tell from the distance. Probably it's going to be something that she's offering to some kind of occult god. Um, I think that the piece in general, it's been leaning a little bit too much towards the brown tones. So I think that the painter tried to break this up with a purple tunic, and I also like that he took a couple of different colors for the skin that she has on the back. I don't know if the brownness of the miniature is maybe also connected to the fact that it's just an barely clad woman in in some kind of skin, so that naturally leads you to a lot of brownish tones. I think that it would have been better if the color of the skin would have been offset a bit stronger against the cloak, because now to me they both read as kind of brownish, making the entire miniature disappear a little bit from sight. If that's a decent way to say it. I do like, however, the crispness of some parts of the paint job, like for example the skull on the left, and also the tunic itself. It has gotten a really intricate highlight, it seems, to yeah, to really make it quite realistic. And it's always difficult to paint something in a realistically messy way, if that is the correct description. Like the tunic, it doesn't read out as spectacular because it just looks really natural, to be honest. So I think I think this tunic is probably one of the best parts of the miniature, and that is quite a rare event to happen. Um, yeah, I think the face could have used a little bit more attention. I mean, we're in a painting competition, so putting in the eyes is something that I would consider that is going to take it to the next level. Um, but anyway, overall, it's a great effort for a really interesting miniature. I think if I were to paint it myself, I would also struggle to shy away from a lot of brown tone. Next up, we have this sorcerer dressed in a brown and green tunic. I believe this in the end was my number one pick, just because of also how crisp this model is. As I described before, I really like it also when there's just some very dark, very much black lining, very strong black lining to separate some stark shadows from each other. Like for example, on this miniature is done with all of the skin areas around the cloak. I think it really separates the skin of the model from the clothes, and I think it really works. The green tunic itself has been painted quite nicely with the different shades of green, and also the detail on the back of the tunic on the bottom, the non-metallic metal is done quite well. Then we have this brown overcloak. Well, the front, well, the golden parts are just painted quite nicely with the accents in the seemingly right places to not disturb the eye too much. So normally with non-metallic metal, when it is done well, then you don't really notice, and when it's done wrong, you really immediately notice that it's not gold that your eye is reading, but just something yellow. Um, so the backside of the cloak has this maybe a little bit in the sense that you could convince your eyes that it's not actually gold that is on the back print, but it's actually just a drawing of something that is gold. However, it still reads as quite realistic, and I think that's a great effort. I don't believe it's part of the model. I think it's just could it be a freehand? I think it is a freehand. But even the fact that I'm having to doubt about this just shows that this is just really a good paint job. The only criticism I could give to this piece is that the face, um, well, the face has been done really well with some lighting, specific lighting on parts of the face that catch the light. So this is a really nicely done paint job, and I think it would definitely deserve to win this competition. Um, However, the only criticism I could give is that you can see that there's quite a lot of layers that have been going on to the face, resulting in a little bit of texture having developed on the face um, due to the different layers of paint. So, yeah, maybe that's just practice makes perfect. Because, well, with less layers, you're not gonna have as many layers and you will not encounter this feature. Um, and also on the hair, I think a little bit more definition could be applied, a little bit stronger differences between the shadows and the light. Yet, yeah, it's really difficult to find a balance also between realism and super realism. So I think this is definitely one of the contenders for the first spot in this competition. Then we go to the next one. The next one to me is a bit more of a piece um, that is going to get a lot of credit based on the composition. Um, because, well, this composition is just crazy. I mean, you have this, it looks like something like a tree and that has this figure growing out of it, and the figure is holding these flying minions or what they are. Um, at the same time, just holding this woman that is stabbing herself through her chest. It seems like a bit of a random composition, but it really works. There's a lot of emotion in this piece, and yeah, that's why I also really like it. You have this very lively tree that grows out into the chest of this woman that is really passionately stabbing herself. And then these figures, it's nice to see this contrast between this very lively, very red, um, the main figure, and then these very cold, stone, nearly stone other figures perched on top. Yeah, I think this is definitely an interesting piece. I wonder what it's going to be played as, actually. I think it might be a three-man or something like that. Um, but we will just probably soon see it on the tabletop sometime. Looking forward to play a game against this piece, definitely. Then we go to a submission that really exemplifies the mini and mini painting competition. This model is definitely the smallest out of all of them, even though this one has a mount. So this is a 10mm miniature rather than a 28mm one. So everything is like 3 times as small as with the other ones, whilst the other ones are already quite small. Yeah, so this is more just about being able to pick out random details of your miniature rather than really making these details seem as detailed as possible. Yet if you look at this miniature, there's still been put quite some effort at a couple of highlights, a couple of shades. So I believe that, or well, in my opinion, the muscles of the unicorn are done quite nicely with the gray, um, really setting apart the different shades in the muscles. Also, the gem on the staff has a couple of colors of purple, going up to a very light white, giving this illusion of a light or some light coming out of the staff. And I also like the gradient on the fire, I believe it is, that this mage is holding in her left hand. Yeah, this being so small, it's just even an achievement to be able to put some black dots into the place where the eyes go. Um, I think the eyes, they don't feature any white and any pupils, but I can't really tell from the pictures. It's just so bloody small. It's Yeah, this is definitely really small. So I think the credit should also already go here for being able to just finish this miniature without spilling some paint in areas where it shouldn't go. All in all, I think it's a great effort in really miniature painting. The last entry I'm going to talk about is going to be my entry. So this is a witch elf. I've been painting so many witch elves. So for my new dread elves, I think I painted around 65 or even 70 of them. Yeah, I got to know the models quite well. So this is my effort at painting one of these at a bit of a higher level. I'm still a little bit messy here and there with some of the blobs of paint, so I still want to minimize that a bit more. However, it was good fun to try non-metallic metal again. Um, I tried a bit of an extreme version of non-metallic metal on the boots. I don't think it turned out exactly as I wanted, but uh, I'm getting better. It's a process. Um, yeah, so if you like this miniature, you can vote for me. Anyway, I haven't talked about the voting yet, so just for 1 day or 2 days, I believe, there's going to be a link available to vote for. And then you can vote for your number 1, for your number 2, and number 3 spot. And the person with most votes wins, and he doesn't win anything other than just eternal fame in the annals of the painting competition. But it's a really good way to motivate yourself to paint something at a bit of a higher level, because well, as people that paint mostly armies, we are often losing sight of just painting single models to a bit of a higher standard. So it's good practice to do this, um, because it also teaches you some new techniques, and it really shows you how some of these small models also especially can be painted to quite a high standard. I think in general in the painting competition we have been growing in level, and also we've been driving each other to some higher levels. So that is really cool to see. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating in the painting challenge, and also for for submitting some cool creative ideas for painting. I hope you all liked this video, and we'll see you next time.